Hello there. I am so glad that y'all are here tonight. I am I am so excited about tonight's show. This is somebody that I do not know. This is somebody that is very nice. And I just really can't say enough good things about him. His name is Joe Cara. And he is I was in a bind this morning because I did not have a show. And I had a show, but then all of a sudden I didn't. It's okay. But he is the host of the Insane Asylum podcast and of Inane. Oh my word. I have all these notes. Utterly Inane Productions. And I am just flabbergasted that somebody is this nice. And when I said, I need a guest, said, I will come in. And I had such respect and such appreciation. And then I was having some technical problems. Now that seems to be fixed, so I can stop being so uptight. And most of y'all know I'm really not that person. So thank you for being patient as I have a minor freak out. But I'm really excited because I know that he is kind of a legend. His podcast is award winning, literally. And, it's the 2020 WPA award winning podcast. And they investigate the unexplained and interview others who are into that also. Kind of exactly what I do. But I think that this is going to be fun because he's in a different region from me. A lot of y'all know him from Paracons as well as from his shows. And let's just bring him in. So, hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm doing better now. It's been one of those days.
Hasn't it though? I think the energy is just very weird. So I had people coming to my door, and that doesn't happen. And the same people came to my door 3 different times.
Really?
And yeah, they did. First, they sent the man up to the door. Then he came back with a woman. And then they came to the door again and did this little, the happy little tappity tap, 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 like it's somebody. And my dogs went off, thank goodness, on that one. And I went to the door and said, "You're going to just have to go." And they were, "Oh, well, we're AT&T or whoever." And I'm like, no.
Yeah, they don't like coming to my doors. People.
Well,
it stays real
I
quiet
hurt their
around
feelings.
Here. I have pulled many tricks on those solicitors. They come to my doors. They get and angry or like I'm possessed or something. I'll do anything to drive them away to the point where they will refuse to come back.
That's a riot. I was pretty close to that, but mainly, I thought it was my husband because of the tap. So I opened the door because my dogs are going crazy like they do when their dad gets home and stuff. So I opened the door, and to his credit, the man did not back up. And I was like, "Get off my porch. And this is the third time you've been at my door. Get off my property." And he was like, "Oh, well, I said, "Don't give me a sales pitch. I don't do sales pitches." But it was really trippy dippy because he didn't move until I went to open my door again. I've got a 90 something pound Aussie golden mix in there. And then he left. So.
Yeah, nobody's afraid of my dog.
Well, I've got a small version of that too.
I've got a purebred Siberian Husky, and she's
really?
White. So she's very people friendly.
Yes.
So, but
I had a white Spitz mix.
If it's a stranger, she won't let them in the house unless she approves.
Yes.
So.
What's her name?
Joy, Timber Joy. She looks like
Mine was Willow.
She looks like a timber wolf. So, you know,
Oh,
when we got her about 9 years ago, her name was Joy, and I'm like, I like Timber Joy better because she kind of looks like a timber wolf, a white timber wolf.
that's perfect.
So, but
Well, Willow
nobody.
was Willow when we got her, so but
So I've
she had the
raised
curly tail.
I've raised Siberian Huskies pretty much all my life. So,
Really?
and they're a very unique breed. So, yeah, because they're so kid friendly. You know, they're like babysitters.
I've had those dogs. My lab was that dog, and it was very cool.
You know, and excuse me. I love
Absolutely.
Huskies. I love everything about Huskies. You know, they got their own little personality and stuff that you know they get so vocal, and it's not like
Mhm.
barking, like normal barking. They'll howl and stuff, and I love it. You know,
Well, it's so unique to the species. Their voices are,
yeah.
and it's like they can commune with each other from
10
goodness
miles
only
away,
knows how far. Yeah, 10?
you can hear a husky's howl 10 miles away, just like a
I
wolf.
didn't realize it was that far.
Yep, they can hear the wolves or other huskies within 10 miles. Oh, hi, puppy. Yeah. See, I get talking to her and she comes out. You can't see her, but maybe, oh, it won't go down that far.
Well, I am a I am a dog friendly girl, so I just
Yeah, I haven't
the
had, we moved out here 2015. Oh, yeah, 2015. And that was the first time I was able to have a dog in like 10 years.
oh wow.
Because we were living in an apartment, and living in
Yeah.
apartments can't have dogs unless they're little lap dogs, and I don't like little lap dogs. They're no fun. They're
Well,
just ankle biters.
well, this we have a little dog right now, and well, we had two, and one passed away. But this one is a mini Aussie, and he was one of those free on the internet dogs. So you knew something was up with that. But he's turned out to be a really good dog. And then this great big um, golden Aussie that we have, we always rescue, including the mini Aussie. But he's a he's a really good dog. The big one is. The small one is still an ankle biter, but not just everybody.
Here,
So, oh my word!
that was that's not Timber Joy. That's Nitro. He
No,
passed away about 9 years ago.
I'm
But
so sorry.
that was my first one when we got here. My niece asked me. She's like, Uncle Joel, can you take Nitro? And I says, bring him out.
Yeah.
I can take him. And then he died on me about a year later, you know. But he was like, the best thing that happened to me was getting a dog when I moved out here. And then when he passed away, it was like I never had that happen to me. I
Yeah.
always had to
Oh
give up
gosh.
the dog or
Yeah.
something like that. So I never had one like pass away on me like that. And I was so attached to that puppy that my wife like, oh, we got to do something. He can't be home alone without a dog, you
Yeah.
know. So we went to a husky farm and got Joy. So, but I don't have a
Sounds like your
picture.
wife is a pretty good lady.
Yeah, yeah. We've
Pretty
been
great.
married. We've been married since 2010. 16 years.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day. We make a
We got
good
married on Valentine's.
partnership. It's like when we do stuff, it's like we do it together. Like we cook, we get done fast, and we do things together. We make good team.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. That's the word I was looking for. Team.
It worked.
It does.
So,
You know.
yep. Well, we got married the first time when I was 17. And now we got married. We divorced and remarried. And we remarried 20 something years ago.
Yeah, I don't think
So
I could
actually
ever.
30 years.
Yeah, I would never be able to do that. I had a bad first marriage, and
Oh,
I would never be able to go back to her. But everybody, I was like, we had no plans. I won a trip. Here's a good story for you. I won a trip. It was Christmas Eve, and I won a trip to Las Vegas to see Garth Brooks. Whoops. Oh no, I'm by myself. I don't like that. Is she still streaming?
I apologize. My
Oh,
internet
there you
went
go.
out, so I had to stop, or you would have been talking to me going,
Yeah, like okay.
oh,
But anyway,
um,
my on Christmas Eve in 2009, I won a trip to Las Vegas to see Garth Brooks in concert.
mm,
My oldest daughter was upset because I wasn't going to take her with me. And it's like, last place I want to go with my daughter is Las Vegas, especially on Valentine's Day weekend. That
right.
that's just not going to happen. So,
Wrong on so many levels.
and I was already dating my wife for 4 years.
Right.
So it's like, let's go. So we went to Vegas, and everybody said, oh, they're going to come back married. And they were right. I mean, we had no intention of getting married or anything when we left. It
Right.
was just one night we were sitting there after, seeing all the Elvis people like passing out, like, here, come to this chapel or this chapel or this chapel. And it's like, we just decided, oh, well, it's a lot cheaper than Madison, coming back to Wisconsin, buying the license and stuff. So we did it.
I
Uh,
love that.
and been married ever since. But I also made the joke that, I'm in a lawsuit with Las Vegas. They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Not true. She came back with me.
Oh my goodness. And yet she lets you get away
She
with
didn't
that.
like
It's
that one at
hilarious.
first, but she laughed. She's got a good sense of humor. So
Well, fortunately, um, fortunately or unfortunately, we've known each other since I was 18,
oh,
and we were married before and got divorced and then remarried.
I've known people like
And
that.
it was much better. It was good both times, except I wasn't mature enough yet. And so the next time around was absolutely perfect. So, and he puts up with my weird interests and travel bug that I get. He does not like to travel except to Vegas. He's a
Oh,
poker player.
well,
And into Cherokee, North Carolina. He likes to go there for poker tournaments too. But he's
I
pretty
would
good.
do that if I was still able to travel that much.
Yeah.
I used to go into poker tournaments. They used to have, like, in Madison, one of the radio stations used to sponsor poker tournaments, and they'd be once a week at a bar or whatever,
Right.
like a different bar every week, but and you wouldn't win money or anything. You would win prizes like a radio station would give away, like T-shirts, concert tickets, stuff like that. You know, and so I would enter those every time they come around.
Yeah.
I was good. I was real good playing Texas Hold'em. I grew up
That's what
playing
he
cards.
plays.
Yeah, I grew
Yeah.
up playing poker. My dad used
Well,
to sponsor poker parties at at the house when I was a kid, and they would be with all these bus drivers, so they all had a lot of this, you know,
yeah.
to toss around. Half of them would be, half of them would get drunk or be drinking, and I'd be sitting there drinking my Mountain Dew and raking it in because I'd be able to, pay more attention than they would,
Hmm.
to the cards. And I
Well,
got
you
really
have to
good
be
at
able
it.
to do that.
I got really good at it after a while. So,
Well, so far, he won. He won a big tournament in Tunica, Mississippi, and then he won a big tournament in North Carolina.
well,
And the Tunica one paid for all the kids' vehicles and college.
wow. See,
And then, yeah, it was.
it must
And
be nice
then,
to get the money from those.
well, I mean, that was unexpected. And he was a wreck because he was up there by himself. And so he had to walk out to leave, and he had security walk out with him. But same thing in North Carolina. But it's really he's really good because he's a chess player,
Mm.
and so and he was a chess player from an early age. So
So it
his
takes a
analytic
lot of
skills,
concentration and focus, and he's carried that over with him.
yeah,
And
and
then learning to
it's a
read
good
people.
background. Well, he's better at reading cards, better at remembering what cards came through. But obviously, he's good at reading people to a degree too, because
Because you have
he
to.
can,
If you're going to
yeah, you
play
can get that
poker,
bluff
you
or,
have to be able to read people,
mhm,
because you got to tell if they're bluffing. People have
yeah,
got tells when they're like telling a lie or whatever. You can tell when somebody's lying, if you know the person well enough. And it doesn't take that much to learn that little trick of reading people.
yeah,
You know, I was a security guard for a long time before I became disabled in '95, and a lot of that from security is kind of transferred over in doing what I do today. As a hobby, the paranormal stuff. A
right.
lot of that kind of you know so I think that, and I used to drive cab, so all of that stuff I learned how to read people very good. I
Yeah.
knew who would tip big, I knew who would, you just you tend to know after a while. It's like a gift, you know
Well, you mentioned the paranormal, and I was just curious, do you do residentials at all?
not anymore because I'm by myself.
Right, me too. Well, did
Yeah,
it, when you were doing them, did you find that those people skills transferred into being able to interact and read the homeowners or location owners
yeah,
and
yeah,
being able to,
yeah. It because we did have what, two or three different times where we did like private, or
mhm,
and you could tell when somebody was like, how can I say this, like just like giving me a crock to get 15 minutes of fame,
right,
you know and then you could tell the people, I had this one young couple, and it was the first time I did a private home paranormal thing, and I knew the couple from other things, but I'm sitting there and I'm listening to their stories individually, because I'd talk to one and I'd end up talking to the other one, and they were legitimately scared
Right.
of living in that house with all the stuff that was going on. You know, they had kitchen doors opening, lights turning on and off. The stove, the oven part of the stove would be open, the oven door would be open, you know, and
Right.
neither one of them did it. One was upstairs taking a shower, and the other one was in the bathroom brushing his teeth, and downstairs, and he comes in the kitchen and the oven door is open or lights are on where there wasn't supposed to be lights on. Well, it took us a while. We had to bring in some other people, and it turns out that somebody died in that house, and it was like a kid,
Oh, wow.
and all he was doing it just to get attention. Because think about it, 10-year-old kid bored. I'm trying to get attention. I want you to notice.
Sure.
He probably didn't even know he was dead. But before we could go any further with that investigation, because we had a psychic come in, a very well known psychic type person come in. And she figured out that it was a little boy in the house, and his name was Tommy, same as young person the person that bought the house. They ended up moving out because they were too scared. They couldn't deal with it anymore.
Oh, wow.
And they haven't had anything happen to them since. Nothing followed them or anything. But that whole town where they were had a very unsolvable. It had like an unknown history because the documents, everything that was documented, was like burned in fires during the time it
Oh,
was there.
wow.
So there's not a
Oh,
whole lot
wow.
of history of this little town. But we figured the whole town has got activity in it, because of
Yeah.
of what we did find out. There it was right on the river, and there was a mill, like a lumber mill there. A lot of deaths happened at that time, but the whole town caught on fire. you know, and then there's no documentation, and there should be, but there was no documentation of the fire department even starting there
Oh, wow.
because all of that went up in history when the
Mhm.
fire it like burned down like twice. The town did.
Oh,
So, but they moved out because they couldn't deal with all the activity that was going on in that house. Me personally, when I was there, we didn't see much. You know,
did you see any?
we documented a little bit, but not as extreme as the cupboard doors opening or anything like that. We got the noises, like the footsteps you'd hear, because everybody was in the same room sitting at a table.
Mm,
So if
right.
we heard footsteps upstairs, you know, there was something, you know, it wasn't, nobody was up there because it was a normal house, two-story house. So, but they moved out before we could do any further investigation on that. They sold the house and moved out. And, I don't blame them because she was pregnant and they were
Oh,
worried
yeah.
more about raising the family quietly and not having all the other activity going on. He's like, I would have loved to stay here, but I can see her point.
Well, yeah, because one of the we did a residential location here when I was with the team, and it was, I mean, this house was so far out that I didn't have any idea where I was, and I'm from here. And
Where's
we
here?
pulled up, huh?
Where are you from?
Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Where are you from?
Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. My stepmom grew up in Madison, but
I was born and raised around there.
oh, okay.
So,
So she is she is very Wisconsin. She's lived here a long time, but she's very still got the mindset and the mannerisms, and it's a definite personality kind of. So it's pretty cool. I like her. But when we went to this house, it was a beautiful old antebellum style house, a small one. And the lady of the house was there with a baby, and me and two or three other people were in the room, three other people besides the homeowner. And, you know, we're getting, EVPs, and we're getting, we can hear the communication. And all of a sudden, the man that was with us, so sitting over to my right, just went rigid. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's looking down the hall, and he looked at the woman, and he was like, do you have a child here? And I kind of leaned over to look down that hallway, and there's a little girl. And she was like, oh, well, she should be asleep. I'm like, you have a baby here and a child, and we're here to do a paranormal investigation with these kids here. Sometimes those things can get a little rocky. You shouldn't have children.
Well,
But
see, that's one of those reasons I don't do.
Yeah.
I don't like doing, because when there's kids and stuff, that's a lot of stuff that can interfere with what you're trying to record or get.
Well, and also sometimes spirits do not react well to a paranormal investigation. So then you've got that going on. And so this woman had two children pass away. And then the house that we were investigating had a fire in the kitchen because they had a reptile heater, the rock heater,
Yeah.
their lizard. And so it caught fire and burned the whole kitchen. And I'm like, man, this is either stuff is happening or this is a Calamity Jane. And Calamity Janes often have a paranormal influence on that. So
Sometimes, though, things like that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I got a lot of beliefs, and one thing I believe in strongly is karma.
Absolutely.
And if somebody's got enough bad karma, they're going to have a lot of bad luck.
Yeah.
And
well, I'm a firm believer in karma too. So
yep,
I don't have any doubt.
That's why I tell people I'm a vampire. I'm going to live forever because I'm going to live long enough to see everybody get bit in the ass by karma that deserves it,
Yeah. I'm going to be here for freaking ever.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But it's really odd though, because that was the first time that I had investigated where there was a child. And I was just kind of like, that's one of the reasons I'm not with that group anymore, because you ask questions, But you need to not I just don't feel like that's a healthy environment for a
Nope.
child
Nope.
because if things go awry, you've got a whole different problem.
Right.
And even if they don't go awry, then there's nightmare things that can happen
Yep.
sometimes.
Oh yeah, it can be
So,
traumatic on a kid. I mean, you
yeah,
know,
I've seen it be traumatic for grown-ups.
some of the littlest things can trigger nightmares for kids, you
Yeah,
know. I mean,
yeah.
I did things a little different. You know, when I was raising my kids, my brother and I are kind of sadistic, you know, when it comes to Halloween. We love Halloween more now that we're adults than we did as kids, you know.
Yeah,
Deck out the garage in a haunted house type thing. And the idea was anybody that came to the house, we scare the hell out of them, right?
good thing.
All right. So, but my kids grew up early, you know, when they got that age and they wanted to stay up and watch a horror movie, I let them.
Mhm.
But I also explained to them, look, this is just a movie. It's all fake. There's nothing real about this movie,
Right.
you know, and never had any issues. I got into a very serious car accident, right? I was pronounced dead before getting to the hospital,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And I was med flighted there. My daughter was hanging upside down. Now here's a story that you would only see or hear on that thing about superhuman powers. All right.
Right.
I just bought this car and we're driving along the main road between Stoughton and McFarland and Madison. It's like out in the country kind of area. My brakes went on me. They just I went to press on the brakes to avoid hitting a car that kind of stopped to make a right turn, and they totally went to the floor. There was nothing there.
Holy crap.
So, in turn, just to make the story go a little quicker, the car flipped and it landed on its roof when it was done. Okay. And I tore the back door off to get my daughter out of her car seat because she was hanging upside down. She came out of it without a scrape or a bruise. The car seat saved her life. The car seat, well, that was had to be thrown away, you know, but it did its job. It saved her life,
Right.
you know. But she had nightmares forever about that accident. And she was only like 3 or 4 at the time, or she was actually 2 at the time. She's like, Daddy went away in an Audi truck, and you know, no, I went away in the helicopter. But
Right.
she didn't know. I mean, but I did what I had to do. I tore the back door off this old Plymouth Volare and got her out, and then I passed out. You know, this was from a witness that was like 2 cars behind me. She saw me do this, and and she's like was surprised that I could do any of it because I was like she couldn't even recognize who I was, and she actually knew me. She didn't know that at the time, but she like saw all the blood on my face and didn't recognize me, and I was surprised I was able to walk and do that too because after I was at the hospital, they were digging gravel and glass out of my legs for like 2 or 3 hours. You know, I couldn't walk. My brother literally had to lift me into the bathroom for almost a week,
Wow.
you know, just so I could go to the bathroom. That's how bad off I was. But that, you know, I survived a lot of shit over the years. And that's another reason I say I'm a vampire. I'm going to live forever because a lot of this shit should have killed me.
Yeah.
That accident years later in '94, December 4th, 1994, I was diagnosed with AML leukemia. It was
Okay.
so far gone, and my white blood cell count was so high that they said there was nothing they could do for me. They said, you know, we can't even start treatments because if we started treatments, they'd kill you. Well, I flatlined like about 5 or 6 times during this time in the emergency room. They had to bring me back, and I had an out of body experience during that time. I saw my mom out in the waiting room. Well, first I saw myself laying on the thing and them trying to bring me back, but I saw my mom. She had heart problems, so when this all this leukemia stuff hit, she had an episode out in the waiting room, and they had to give her a shot to bring her back. And when they brought me back from that time, I looked at my brother and I said, "Is my mom okay?" Because my brother, my stepfather, and my dad were all in the room with me, you know. And my brother's like, "How do you know about mom?" You know, and my stepfather said, "Oh, she's, give me a minute." He said, "She's fine. She'll be fine." You know, but that was always the question. It's like, how do you know? You
Yeah.
know, but I never believed in any of this paranormal stuff until that day.
Really?
You know, because I didn't believe in life after death or the out of body experience thing or anything until that day happened. You know,
How old were you?
in 95,
Mm-hmm.
28, 29, maybe. I'm 59 now.
Still a baby. I'm 64. But it's did you believe in it because you were out of body seeing your mom? Was that your moment?
Yeah, that was like my moment. I mean, you know, my mom, was one of these peoples that had a lot of health problems most of her life. So the heart thing and diabetes were always an issue. So, I was mama's boy when I grew up, because my dad was an alcoholic and a drunk and never around, but my mom was like my best friend. And yeah, the first thing I came to, it's like, how's mom doing, And it's like, how do you know? It's like, I know, you know. But yeah, that strange stuff happens when you get that close to death.
Yeah.
They told me when I was diagnosed, and they had to do, like I said, they couldn't start treatments. They had to do what was called plasmapheresis. It was new at the time. It was a newer technology at the time, and what it means is they did this using this big loud machine that they'd bring in your room. They'd hooked it up to the ports. They had like those, like, people with cancer. You've seen the ports.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they hook it up with the port and they drain the blood and they clean all the white blood cells out, and then it pumps it back in through. It's a recycling kind of
Right.
process. And they said if I survived that, then they could start the treatments. They basically told me I wasn't going to live to see Christmas that year. Okay.
Glad they were wrong.
And then when they got past, I survived the plasmapheresis, whole thing, which was like a couple weeks. I survived that. Then they's like, okay, we can start the treatments and all that. And then I went through a bone marrow transplant. And I was lucky. I've got two brothers, but I've only got one that's a full brother. The other one's a half brother. And so my full brother, he was an exact match for bone marrow. So he saved my life. But the bone marrow transplant was only supposed to let me live an additional 10 years. That would have put me around 45, you know.
Right.
So here I am going to be turning 60. So for me, that's a miracle. You know, I'm not supposed to be here right now. So,
Well, there's a reason.
that's what they tell me.
Yeah. I always tell you that. But, but it's true because I'm absolutely certain that we all have reasons to be here. I don't think anybody is just random. And I think that I think that's brilliant that you're still here.
So, I've been doing we started the podcast, and it wasn't Insane Asylum when it started. Um, but we started it by talking anything that was on our mind because of how fucked up the world is. Didn't go so well. Okay. Pissed a lot of people off. Got no subscribers. So we changed to the paranormal, and I've been having a blast. You know, I have
Yeah.
more fun doing this. I mean, I went to Michigan, and yes, I'm a cancer survivor, and I support the legalization of marijuana in whatever state you live in. But I have to go out of state to get it from a dispensary. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not legal here in Wisconsin. You know,
Here either.
but I go to Michigan, and I go up to the northern peninsula to get over because it's only about a 3 hour drive that way. Going the other way takes longer because I got to go through Chicago and Indiana and up. Okay, so I go there, and I go to this dispensary, and oh, by the way, my truck, we got an old police interceptor, 2019 police interceptor Ford Explorer. Okay, so it's black and white. Okay, but we've got it decked out with vinyl. My wife did all this vinyl stuff, and I got custom magnets made. So it's kind of like a Ghostbusters truck, but it's all
I've seen the
original.
pictures of it. Yeah.
Okay. So this woman comes running out of the dispensary because it's like a drive up thing. You know, you can't go inside the building, but only the workers can. She comes running out. She says, "I'm a big fan of yours. I watch you all the time." And it's like, wow, I had to go to Michigan to
How cool is that, though?
exactly. So, that wouldn't have happened if we were still like pissing people off, and where you can talk, the paranormal is a big subject, and there's no experts in it because you can't be an expert in any of it because it's
No.
all theories, you
Yeah.
know? So it's right up my alley. But yeah, that was the coolest experience I had. I mean, I have people recognizing me because I got a custom leather vest and I wear the cowboy hat and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's just a little too hot for that.
Yes.
You know,
The rockin' hat.
they sit there and they recognize me, and I love it. My wife, it gets a little, come on, we got to get going. But I get sitting around talking to them. It's like, you know, telling me their stories of whatever's haunted or, their experiences. And I think it's fun, you know.
It is fun. I mean, that's my whole reason to go to conventions,
Oh, yeah.
even if I'm not doing a booth or whatever, I still love to be there so that I can talk to
You make
the people.
connections.
Yes, and
And that's
people want
important
to
when you
tell.
do a podcast.
Yes, and
I,
it's
I'm just,
also
I'm sorry.
no,
I
you're
used
not.
to have a
Don't
partner in there.
apologize.
I used to have a partner doing the podcast with me, and he hated going to these things with me. I love them.
Well, look,
I make
I love
so
them.
many connections. I'm sitting out there outside at the one hotel in Chicago every year with a group of people, and we're all just swapping stories.
I
You
do
know,
that in Gettysburg when I can go. I haven't gone the last 2 years because of, well, I've got a daughter-in-law getting chemo right now, and she was just found out she was pregnant last year, and now I have grandkids sports, so we have um, it's just it's a lot of fun, but I love getting to I mean, I drive because I carry stuff with me. And my husband's like, "You're not driving 14 hours to go to a con." I'm like, "But I'm going to Gettysburg." So last time he didn't want me to drive because it was too far. So I had him ship all my stuff up there. And, you know, that kind of broke up that.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah.
My wife does all the driving. I
Well,
can drive if I want to, but
yeah. Well, David won't go because
I
somebody
can't
has to
use
stay with the dogs.
I can't use my see. That's about the best I can use that hand. See, I can't
Yeah.
straighten it out. I had a stroke about a year ago, and I haven't healed. No,
You're doing pretty good.
second stroke I had. So in three
Um,
years.
well, I think you're doing great then.
Well, it goes to my theory. I'm a vampire. I'm going to live forever. And that's I started that back when I had the leukemia because leukemia is a blood cancer.
Yeah.
So you think about it, and I used to do security. So I was always working third shift. I'd wake up when the sun was going down and I'd go to
Yeah.
sleep about the time the sun was coming up. So and then of course I eat all my beef steak, beef meat, rare, bloody rare. So it's like, yeah, so it just kind of,
Just roll with that.
yep,
Oops. My thing came loose.
yep. So I rolled with that, and it's like it's that, and then the other
And
one
so
was,
I am going to have to, something's not working here. Can you say something?
yeah, I can say a
There
lot.
we go.
So it's either that I'm a vampire, I'm gonna live forever, or my favorite one, my mom. Before she passed away, she never drove, so I'd have to chauffeur around every now and then. One day, just out of the blue, she looked at me and she's like, "Anybody ever tell you you look like Charles Manson?" And it's like, "Thanks a lot, Mom."
No doubt. No doubt. Oh my
So
goodness.
I had a lot of fun with that too.
Well, Charles Manson was not the first thing that came to my mind when I saw you. So,
No, I'm sure it wasn't because back then when my mom said that, I didn't have so much gray hair either.
well, it really is just, an interesting experience when you start thinking about all the things that we go through, the things that mark us, for lack of a better word, and um, just tried apparently to not let us play the way we would want to with our friends.
Yeah.
And yet we still managed to wish that we knew how to do things like electronics a little better. Sorry about that. But I'm trying to overcome all of my little gremlins that seem to be happening right now. I am in a new office, changed rooms and such. And this is my third week, I think, in here, Carl. Am I right? And it's still getting glitches.
Well,
It
it
drives
happens.
me.
That happens. I mean,
I know.
I've been in the same room. I call it my office, but I've got a custom built computer.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is this computer was built to my specs. I would have built it myself, but you know, my hand
Yeah.
won't cooperate. And this has been going on for over a year, trying to get my hand to work again. You know, I can't even straighten out my fingers. I can straighten out this one, but I can't straighten out this one.
Right.
You know, and before that, I went like 2 or 3 years almost blind because of cataracts. You know, and so I didn't trust my. So during that time, I didn't trust myself to drive either. But it was always one of those things. It's like, well, you know, this might happen. This might, they say these things might happen to you as side effects to the chemotherapy and the radiation and stuff and all the treatments I went through due to leukemia. You know, cataracts was a possible issue. Well, I ignored it so much, I ended up having surgery in both eyes.
Did you?
Yeah. So I had cataract surgery in both my eyes. And once that happened, oh my God, I don't need the reading glasses anymore. I can see my computer just fine. I could work on this computer if my hand wasn't so fucked up, you know. It's frustrating. This is more frustrating than anything else. You know. I
Well,
used to be able to type really fast, because I was one of them ones that grew up in the time where we it was mandatory to take typing classes. And my
me
teacher had
too.
mine was one of these old ladies with blue hair, and she'd walk around with a ruler. And if your palms or something started resting on wherever, she'd come around, smack your hands with that ruler. Yeah.
That is so funny because I had a dad that insisted that I take typing. And I was just like, why? I mean, why? And it was the best thing I ever did. And like, I graduated from high school in 1980, and we had a whole business curriculum, business math, business law,
Yep.
typing, and that
Yep.
type of thing. So he had me take all of that. And
It's one
it
of the
was
best
pretty
things you probably
interesting.
ever did, though. You know,
It
I mean, if
was.
you think about it, back when you and I went to school back in the 80s, because I graduated in 85, okay, from high school. So high school wasn't that much different for you and me. You know, those things, we had no idea computers were going to take over, because they weren't even available in the homes yet.
No.
You could the best computer I think it was that you can get. I had in 84 or 85. I got was a Texas Instruments 99 4A. It was all built into the keyboard. I actually still
Yeah.
have one in its box. You know, but that computer, I learned how to type, and it's like, oh my God, those typing classes came in handy because of the stuff I build my website fast. I can do this, but now it's frustrating because I can't. I got a hen peck. The
Yeah.
one-handed thing. But I never thought it'd become, you know. But now it's like, yeah, typing was. I'm glad I took all 4 years. And it was required. You know.
Yeah. Well, I will never regret having that class.
Nope, me neither.
Now, I will tell you that taking Latin was the biggest bunch of hooey on the planet, bar none.
I didn't like
So,
those foreign languages either.
well, Latin is the problem is that Latin's a dead language.
Mm,
So nobody speaks it. And, it was just one of those things that all it was good for was grammar.
right, right.
And my Latin teacher thought that that was the most important thing that anyone could ever take in their entire life.
Mm-mm.
And we had a lot of clashes because I did not agree with her. So there was that.
Yeah, I clashed with a teacher. They didn't like me. They were teaching algebra.
Yeah.
And you have to show your work.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I thought that was a pain in the ass.
I did not generally
Okay.
show my work, which is why I was a really bad. It was my worst grade I ever had in my life.
So I clashed with the algebra teacher several times, and you got to show your work. And I says, why? I says it doesn't. I says I can do it faster and get done faster and do it all in my head.
Yeah.
No, you can't do it in your head. You're cheating somehow. No, I was just a math whiz.
Yeah.
I they ended up sending me to be tested because of all the issues I had with some of my teachers.
Yeah.
And it's like I come up with the same answer as you, right? My answers are right, aren't they? Yeah, but you don't show in your work, so it's an F. And I get pissed. I had very little control over my temper in high school, and I lashed out at the teachers, and they had me went and got tested, and they wanted to put me in advanced classes and stuff because my IQ was higher than most of the students there, the average student. And it's like,
Right.
after that, the algebra teacher was told to leave me alone because I didn't want to go in these advanced classes because I didn't want to feel like a freak,
Yeah.
for my friends, with my friends. And I wanted to stay in the classes with my friends. And so the algebra teacher had to leave me alone and stop harassing me about doing my work after that. But it took almost 2 years to get to that point.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I may seem, like I'm not that bright to most people, when I talk and stuff, because it's where I'm raised and where I was brought up, and I smoke a lot of pot and all that shit, right? But I found over the years I had to dumb myself down in order to deal with some of these people
Yeah.
that I deal with on a daily basis, and so it's like habit for me. But when it comes to a computer and computers and programming and stuff like that, there's nothing about a computer I can't fix. You know, I'm like a computer genius.
Well, I'm not a computer repair genius, but I am a computer operator genius. And that sounds like a weird thing to be glad that you have. But I mean, I'm great with software once
Well,
I get a chance to play with it.
but the thing is, a lot of people our age and up refuse to learn, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that's a great thing. You know software good enough where, hey, software is just as important as hardware.
Well, I will say that probably Carl is much more adventurous with hardware than I am. And a lot of people are. But the programs that I like, it's just like, oh, well, so if, A equals B, A plus B equals C, and it's going to always be that way. The only
Hmm.
thing that I've ever had problems with is Adobe Photoshop because it's like they just try to make that complicated.
Yeah, I don't like anything Adobe, but I have to use it. Oh.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it's like with the paranormal. All the devices, all of the applications, all of the stuff. I love stuff, but it's not the be all and the end all when you're trying to figure it out because if you have gifts as well, I like documenting what I'm feeling
Hmm.
and getting because it's easier if you have some like if you're doing a residential. If you're doing a residential, then they want to see what you have. So if you can catch evidence, then they're going to be they're going to be validated, and B, they're going to be grieving on that, right? Unless it trips them out. But most of them are going to be grieving on that because they will feel like finally somebody can show what I am, what I'm seeing or what I'm
What I'm
hearing, or
experiencing, yeah, going through.
so I like that aspect of it. But yeah, I'm an EVP girl. I love EVPs. And sometimes those are hard to prove that that's you. I
Well,
feel like you really need something else with that.
but you can't always go to a location and get something to happen,
Yeah,
and
true.
I agree with you too. You got to be able to trust your body,
Yeah,
you know, like you go into a location and it feels haunted or it feels like something's there or presence is there and you feel that or you feel like you're being watched, those kind of things should be documented,
yes,
you know, because they're legit too. Because you don't just walk into a place and all of a sudden your hair crawls up on your hands, arms for nothing.
yeah,
It, you got to take a little common sense into it, and use those feelings and those instincts that you have. They're built in to protect you and try you to trust them.
yeah,
You have those abilities for a reason. You got to be able to trust them and acknowledge that they're there.
yes.
You know.
And it's so funny because people seem to discredit just the awareness factor. Like I don't see well, as a rule, I don't see spirit, right? I have, but I don't normally. It has to be really wanting to be seen and really trying to show me for me to get there. But what I what I do have is an awareness when there is something around me, and I'm pretty good at tuning into that because that is something that's been innate in humans from the time that we were created because you're prey. I mean, we are prey if we're out in the woods somewhere or, if you're in a haunted environment, it translates there also.
I had an experience once, like some really weird shit happened. Uh, we went to a school. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called Farrar School. It's in
Yes.
Maxwell, Iowa. Yeah, Maxwell, Iowa. Anyway, we went to this school, and we all get there, and I'm drive up, and you know, my wife and I get out of the car, get our equipment, and I start walking up, and I walk past the, in the door. You know, I had to immediately, almost immediately, walk back outside for a while because I started feeling sick,
Oh,
right? So I went out to the car, I sat there for a minute, and then I took I have a cross that I usually have hanging from the mirror, you know, and I put that around my neck and I went back in and nothing after that. But the funny story is my partner at the time decided he was going to provoke the spirits that were there. Okay. All of our equipment was fairly new. Okay. Basically, maybe a year old at the, because we just started doing this. So all the batteries were brand new, fully charged and stuff. Nothing would work for him. He couldn't even get in his laptop. He was locked out.
oh, wow.
And he knew the password. He says, I know this is a password. But it wouldn't open. It totally locked him out. Got home the next morning, tried his laptop. First try, he
Oh
got
my
in.
gosh.
And it was the same password he was using at the school.
That's so insane and so a real thing. I
Because
mean,
he provoked what was ever there. He had to
yeah.
do it. When we first got there, this place is so haunted and so active that when we were there was a gentleman with us because it was his idea to take us there, Dal Kazmarek. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of him. A lot of
I
people
have.
have, but he took us there and he's sitting there doing like this little history bit on camera for for what he was doing. So everybody was quiet. We're unpacking our equipment and stuff. And I'm up high looking down at the gymnasium where he was standing, and behind him there was like, one of them rubber balls that you play like dodgeball with,
Yeah.
the round rubber ball, just rolled across the floor. Nothing there, no wind, nothing could possibly do it. It happened right behind him, and nobody got it on cam because it was too low, and we weren't set up yet.
That's a riot.
But the place was very active, and
I've heard that it is.
he had what do you call it, a plasma box or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was his laptop hooked up to a speaker, and he was doing a session in the boiler room. And boy, we got a lot of different voices through that thing. And one of them happened to be a very angry man.
Oh,
And I knew it. I says, I was just thinking to myself that day, this isn't going to go well for Mark, because he provoked things.
yes.
Sure enough, all of his equipment failed on him, and his laptop got locked out. But yeah, it was a very interesting place. You know, a
Well, I have
school.
heard so much about there. I, have you been more than that time? Have you been
No,
more
I
than
was just
once?
there that one time, and it was interesting because I want to go back. because there was a 150-year-old cemetery right across the street from it.
Wow.
So, and I kept picking up a lot of vibes from the cemetery, even though it was on the other side of the highway. You know, it wasn't a big highway, you know, like a major 4-lane interstate thing. It was like, you know, 2-lane highway, you know.
Yeah.
But still, I kept picking up a lot of bad vibes or something was drawing me. And I never did walk across the street to go over there, but I was drawn to it every time I was outside, you know, looking over that way. You know, so yeah, I do want to go back. It's one of those places on my list.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of places on my list. I have I've investigated a lot of places. I think that my favorite is in Ohio. That's like here in this country. But the one in Ohio is in a place that's right by Fort Wayne. And it's like 17 miles from Fort Wayne Airport to Paulding. And the jail there is called the Old Paulding Jail.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Well, one of my girlfriends owns it.
Oh,
And
nice.
probably the strongest, weirdest paranormal experience I've had was the still today was there. And I know I seem so sweet and quiet and southern and stuff, but I ticked off every spirit in the jail. And then I got ticked off because they were messing with my computer. And then things just kind of went downhill from there. But it was the strangest thing because these those cast iron, I guess they are cast iron doors, like in jail cells,
Oh, yeah.
you could hear them slamming back and forth, and I'm looking at them and they're not moving, right? And I was trying to do a live show from there. This was back in the day, and I had a producer that was listening in, and he was messaging me, and he said, "Yeah, I'll let you know if you need to leave. Just keep going." And a few minutes later, I mean, because I was getting mad because I mean they're messing with my computer, they're just being obnoxious. They thought I was obnoxious too. Really, I shouldn't have been where I was, but um, yeah, it was. I got a message. I was using what Skype at the time. It was just audio,
Oh,
and
Skype.
yeah, and the the message I got was get your computer and get out of there now. And I'm like, I'm not done. I was so mad. And I was like, I'm not done. He was like, pick up your laptop if you want it and get out now. And so we went into the kitchen and she had one of those portals, the Steve Huff design. She bought the design and built a portal. And
Nice.
so that's the best tool I have ever seen in all my years as a paranormal investigator. And I don't care what your opinion is of Steve Huff, that portal is outstanding and intricate. Is you would probably have no problem putting it together. I would have a difficult time with it, but my husband could do it. But anyway, so we went into her kitchen of the jail and used that portal and communicated. I mean, because she communicates with the spirits all the time, but because it's her jail. But
Mm-hmm.
she was like, I invited her here, and explained why I was there. That we were trying to get information out about the jail, and because now it's been on TV, it's on the map, people know about it. But to this day, and I will always swear that that's the most interesting and kind of weird sometimes place I've ever investigated. And I stayed there when I go because, she lives out of town. So she comes and stays at the jail when
That's one
she's
of
doing
those
research.
things. That's one of those things I haven't had the pleasure of investigating yet. A
Well,
jail.
well, I would meet people there to go investigate there. It is because, yeah, the first time I was there, I had such a really radical experience. That's the strongest I've
Well,
ever
when I
seen
first
spirit.
started this, Joliet prison was in
Never been there.
shambles. Was kind of like in shambles and not safe. So it was
Yeah.
closed at the time. A lot of flooding going on. Now that it's been repaired, I haven't been down there except outside of it, take pictures and stuff, but I
Yeah.
haven't been part of a tour yet. The only one I've been to was, it wasn't even a prison, it was just a local jail in a small town. It's where they kept Ed Gein before transferring him to Madison, where he died.
Wow.
So, yeah, we were. I went. I went to Plainsfield to kind of like take a look at all the spots where Ed, you know, his grave site to where his home used to be, because the townspeople burned that down, to the hardware store that he killed the woman in, and you know. But you got to be very careful in that small town of Plainsfield. You don't mention him. You don't let people know what you're doing, because if they find out, they'll ask you to leave.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. They're very touchy when it comes to him.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know,
guess I
but
can understand that though.
but think about it. All right, Ed Gein, he only killed maybe a couple of people. Okay, he was basically robbing graves and making things like chairs and lampshades out of human skin from the graves that he robbed, right?
Well,
But
he'd have to
I
be
mean,
robbing fresh graves. That would be weird.
well, he did it anyway. They sat there and created all kinds of movies based on him. Silence of the Lambs, heck,
Yeah.
Hannibal the Cannibal was based somewhat on him.
I
Uh,
did not know that.
Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on him. Psycho, Bates Motel was based on him. A lot of movies were based on Ed Gein and that whole story. So people come up there in the plains field for a lot of the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I could see that.
And
That's weird.
community don't like that.
I wouldn't
So
like that either.
So when we were up there, we were, besides my vehicle standing out, uh, we were just very quiet, taking pictures and talking amongst ourselves. We didn't interact with any of the community because we didn't want to piss anybody off, you
Yeah.
know. But you can't go out to where his house used to be. You can't go out to that property because you ain't gonna see nothing but empty lot, because they burnt
Yes.
that sucker down to the ground. You know, um, but yeah, I like going to those places too. Like the ones based on like the serial killers or stuff like that. But man, that was the one and only time that I was scared in a town, because we were being watched by everybody.
Oh, wow.
You know,
I'd have been scared too.
and I'm like, wow, they are. I was like, come on, are we ready? And I was with Dale Kazmarek, and he loved telling stories, and loved really telling the history and stuff because he knows all this stuff. But it's like, I think we're overstaying our welcome. I wanted to get out of there as quick as I could. But then we got to the jail, and that was a totally different experience. At least we weren't in Plainsfield anymore. But you know, he was. We got to actually go into the jail cell because they kind of kept that plus a couple other cells, of the building. They kind of it didn't all stay at jail, but you had like 3 cells or 4 cells. They kept it intact, some of it, and you know, but oh my God, that town, I tell you, it is. I mean, Chad Lewis has a book on, a lot of books on the Wisconsin stuff, and when it comes to Plainsfield, he wasn't lying. They don't like it when you come up there.
That
You
is so wild.
you know. But there's a lot of fun places around Wisconsin. I have yet to go to, or go back to. I'm like really big into the cryptids.
I love cryptids.
So I did 2019 to about 24, once or twice a year. I went to what Barnaby Jones has dubbed the Skinwalker Ranch of Wisconsin. Okay.
Cool.
And I went out there in search of the Beast of Bray Road.
Okay.
And if you don't know about the Beast of Bray
I
Road,
do.
well, just in case, it is a werewolf-like creature, right? And I've been fascinated with that one for ever since I heard it. Because it is truly possible that people are either misidentifying something, and it's not a werewolf, but maybe what do they call that?
Sasquatch.
The Native Americans have a word for it. It's like a
Oh,
shapeshifter. You know,
yeah.
anyway, it's like a Native American thing where, about a shapeshifter. And I believe that might be what people are seeing, is something like that. Or misidentifying, because the first witness account of this was she was driving down this road, Bray Road. Bray Road is about 2.5 miles long, and it's out in the country, middle of nowhere. You got woods on both sides, but there's no street lights at all. So at night, it's very, very dark. Okay. Mind can play tricks with you.
Yeah.
And so I can't do it too well because the way the camera is positioned, but she said something was eating roadkill on the side of the road, and it kind of like, did that thing and stood up, and it had glowing red eyes. Well, if you hit the headlights into a canine thing, well, they shine red or green usually. Okay. That explains that. But, if you're driving down that road by yourself at night, the mind can play tricks.
Yeah.
So it could be because Wisconsin is full of coyotes and wolves. We've got them both. And then there's the theory of the dire wolf.
Yeah.
Didn't really go extinct. But there's other theories where our gray wolves, or whatever you want to call the wolves that are indigenous to Wisconsin, may have crossbreeded with the dire wolf back in the day. It's possible for, within that same species of wolves to interbreed. Okay. But I don't know. People are seeing something out there, and something's happening, and it's unexplainable. I can't explain it. I can't explain the stories. I've seen some of the pictures from the trail cams from that property, and there's a lot more than just the Beast of Bray Road going on there.
Well, when you're looking at the video images, I mean, I always think that probably the only thing that could be misidentified as, well, a skinwalker, not so much, that wouldn't be a bear, but other animals could be bear-ish. You know, if you had a young or a rabid bear that had lost weight, dropped weight,
Right. See, common
then
sense.
then
You
that
know,
would be a possibility. But you know, it's very difficult if you're, you know, because as far as being able to go bipedal, there's not much.
right. And see,
And
that's the thing that's kind of stumped me is everybody says that it's bipedal,
yeah,
but at that time of night, and with that kind of darkness, the mind can play tricks,
it
especially if
can.
you're by yourself out there driving the
Yes.
road. So a wolf getting up on its, like, kind of like doing that thing, because it's eating roadkill, and it all of a sudden gets startled, and it kind of looks up. That could
Yep.
be, and then it runs off. Oh, it stood up and run off. See, you see what I'm saying? How that
I
goes,
do. I agree
you
with you
know,
too.
and I've watched. I don't like watching a lot of TV, and I'm kind of,
Yeah.
they say, you don't want to meet your hero and stuff like this, and you really don't.
Yeah.
Uh, but there was a TV show. They did their thing out there on Berry Road, and I
Yeah.
watched it. The Beast of Bray Road. It was like 2 or 3 episodes, and it was Josh Gates and his team.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed. They caught eye shine on the road in a tree and said it was the beast. No, it was a raccoon. Even I could tell that.
Yeah.
And a lot of other people that watched it later, we were talking about it. Oh, it was a raccoon or something. Don't tell me that. Tell that. But in that same area, there are a lot of Bigfoot sightings. Okay, which also the Elkhorn takes up a good portion of or not Elkhorn, the Kettle Moraine Forest takes up a good
Yes.
portion of the state.
Well,
Okay,
you know, Linda Godfrey used to live
yeah,
right there
I wish
where
I would have met her.
you and me both. She was very big into Fate magazine, and she and Phyllis were running buddies for a long time. And I really wish that I had gotten to, well, I did get to meet her, but to be able to sit down and have a conversation and just chit chat. And Rosemary Gully, also, you know, one of Phyllis's running buddies, wonderful woman. And I just got to meet her just for a little bit at the Battlefield Bash. And, you know, but, but Linda lived right there off Bray Road. And so she was always getting in there on those investigations
Well,
through there.
the the property that I went to was owned by Lee Hampel,
Okay.
and she wrote her book and kind of disguised his name the first time around, but after a while he said, just let it go. So, but yeah, I wish I would have gotten a chance to meet Linda Godfrey. Um,
Yeah.
there was what was that last Milwaukee Paracon that happened? It happened all online because of COVID. Okay, and her son and her did a story on the black cat of Big Cat Mountain. They did a documentary on it, and that was featured during that thing. And that was during the time I was, hoping for COVID to get over, and she passed away before I get a
Yeah.
chance to meet her. But God, she seemed like such a great lady, you
She
know.
did, right? And fearless.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, and I would get tickled like on Facebook, she was, something would bring her like little animals, like
yep.
stuffed or plastic, like little Gumby kind of animal.
She she wrote that book. She dubbed it. It was her that named it the Beast of Bray Road because of
Yeah,
her article in the Elkhorn Times, I think it was, or one of those local newspaper things that she
yeah.
wrote for, you know. But her and her son did this thing in this documentary, and I wanted to get to her and ask her questions, not so much about the Beast of Bray Road, but, it's like a Black Panther
Yeah.
roaming in the state of Wisconsin. DNR says that's impossible. You know, local
Yeah, I
law
do.
enforcement will say it's impossible. There's a place in Wisconsin, and I learned about the melatonin disease, whatever, one causes out, one way it goes, they're albino. The other
Right.
way, they're all black, right?
Yeah.
So, what a panther is, because it doesn't exist, is basically a leopard or a jaguar with that disease, right?
Mhm.
Which is a large feline. Feline. All right. We don't have those here. They're not native to Wisconsin. But what we do have is what's called a cougar or mountain lion, depending on which part of the
Yeah.
country you live in. And they say, well, they can't have that disease. Why not? It
Sure they
seems like
can.
all animals can have that disease according to the McKenzie Center.
Yeah.
So why not? Oh, it doesn't happen. It's impossible. No, nothing's impossible.
Nothing
But
isn't.
that's what they
Well,
say. So what?
you cannot put an absolute on something that you don't understand anyway.
Right. But I'm just saying that's what
I
they
know.
say. That's what the DNR says and our government says. But Linda Godfrey and her son believed it was possible that a black mountain lion, all black, could happen.
Yeah.
Again, then it would be called a leopard. Because if you look at a leopard, a black leopard, and you look real close, or, you look at a black panther real close, what they are, you can see the stripes or the spots in them.
Yes, you can. Especially a
You know,
leopard.
you
I
know,
mean, the tiger, I think, is a little bit harder because most of their stripes are black anyway, but the leopards shine through. I mean, you have to get on them. You have to look at the pictures closely. But
right.
I've seen images that were just like, oh, that's a leopard.
But they've got images, people got images from their trail cams and stuff out in the Hillsborough area. And you can look at that picture and know that it's not an overgrown house cat.
Right?
There's no way that's a house cat. And the only
Unless
thing,
it's somebody that's very daring with their house animals.
right,
I mean,
you know,
but I mean, seriously, you can't.
we've only got one cat that size that would be that size in the state of Wisconsin. And that would be the cougar or the mountain lion. The bobcat and the lynx are too small,
Yeah.
and those are the other two wild cats that are indigenous to Wisconsin. I know this because, it's my thing. I do the cryptids more. So when you do cryptids and stuff, you got to know the wildlife in the area that you're researching,
Absolutely.
and and I've grown up in Wisconsin and used to hunt deer and stuff like that, so I know what to watch out for. You know, I know what's here, but man, I don't know how to explain the Beast of Bray Road. I really don't. That's one I don't know. And
Well,
Bigfoot's another one I don't know. And those sightings have been going up a lot around a specific highway, you know.
but we're taking over the environment.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving them out of their environment. Every interstate that we build, every town that gets bigger, they're losing their environment. It's just like any other.
And then they got to move because they got to find the
Yeah,
water resources or the deer where the deer are moving to,
yeah,
and and you see all the roads going through cutting through the forest, and some of them are going to have to cross those roads,
yeah.
and that's specifically where a lot of the sightings are, is across this one highway that runs right through the kettle moraine forest,
Okay.
and they see a lot of Bigfoot crossing there. You know, I have yet to go out and look for Bigfoot yet.
I
That's one cryptid I have.
Yeah, I have not actively gone seeking that, but where I live, um, back, when I was younger, when God was a child, one of my girlfriends grew up on what's called Double Oak Mountain here, and she is native, and her family lived out there, and they they lived alongside Bigfoot, and you know it was nothing to see them. So and she is, I think she's in her 80s, so that would have been a good while before I started dating. And there's a road that used to go out there. If you got taken out to dinner out there, you were a very hot date because it costs money and gas to get there, right? But it was so interesting to me that when she was talking about growing up, they would leave food out, or they would have stuff brought to them. And it was just like part of the community.
Yeah.
The interaction was like part of the community. And I mean, her whole little area was made up of family, native people, family.
Well, yeah,
And,
and it's like if you didn't bother them, they wouldn't bother you so much, and that's another
but they would
thing,
interact.
right?
They'd still interact.
But see, some of these witnesses, oh, Bigfoot was attacking my house, or Bigfoot attacked me, and it's like, I think you're just searching for fame. You know, the
Yeah.
ones that are more believable is that, oh, he was staring at me and stuff, and I went to move to get my camera so I could snap a picture, and he was gone.
Yeah.
Now that's more believable because I don't think Bigfoot is aggressive. I think they're more of some kind of watcher. You know,
Well, they're just trying to live.
yeah.
I mean, they're just trying to live too.
But how are they
And
going to learn about us without observing? You know,
yes,
so they gotta, they observe how we live so they can learn how to stay out of our way, or you
yes,
know, see, it's like a give and take there, but they gotta learn
yeah,
because we're not all the same. Obviously there's a shit ton of prisons overcrowded here. A lot of bad people, but they get to an area and they because they got to move because of their environment getting, you know,
yeah,
taken down by us. They got to learn each time they move. And how they
yeah.
going to do that? But watch and observe, you know. And I don't think they're somebody that I don't think they're something that would harm us with intent unless we did something first.
Exactly. I, they will. My understanding is they will defend,
Well, yeah, I'm sure they
but
defend
they're
themselves, but it's more like they'll run off before they, attack.
yeah. I've never really heard of. Well,
I've heard a few stories like that, and
yeah, but
I don't
as a
think
rule,
those people are too credible either. You know,
well, yeah, because as a rule, I think that they try to avoid contact
yeah, they do.
because we're not the friendliest species. I mean, you know, it's we're
Well,
not the friendliest
who
species.
knows what'll happen because I've noticed since I've done this since 2019, I started doing the paranormal thing. And each year, it seems like there's more and more sightings of Bigfoot happening. More and more, oh, we saw a UFO or something like that. It's because everybody's got a computer in their pocket and they're taking pictures now.
Yeah,
Some of them can be credible, and I think some of them are just out searching for their 15 minutes of fame. And it's
or
getting harder and harder to define which is which sometimes, you know,
it's true.
because everybody is seeing stuff that they can't explain in the sky. And I think a lot of it's real.
I do
But
too.
whether it's a test of our military or whatever, the government, or somebody just coming in to visit and see how far we've advanced. If I don't think that's another thing. People are, oh, they're going to invade us. I don't think that's either. I think we're too primitive
Yeah,
for other species that has the capabilities of interspace travel like that to even worry about. They come in, they take a look. Oh, we don't have to worry about them yet,
we've
and then
got a
they
ways
go
to go.
away.
I agree with that.
You know, I mean, because we don't have that technology. Yeah, we somewhere along the line, somebody's dreamed it up, and it's went on TV, and we got Star Trek and all these movies, right?
Yes.
But you don't see that. We haven't. We barely explored the moon, Mars. We haven't really gone much farther. The only way they've gone
Why do
much
you,
farther is with those telescopes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why do you think we haven't been back to the moon?
I don't think we were in the first place. No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's anything there.
I
I
don't
think
think there
it's
is now at all.
I mean, they've said life on the moon. I think it's just a uninhabitable planet, that don't
Well,
have
it's
life or might have some life form or whatever. But I don't think they want to waste their time.
yeah.
They need to go further out.
Well, we put all this equipment on Mars and just bypassed everything else to get to Mars.
Hmm.
And I don't understand.
Well, they're not too bright. Some of
Well,
them. It's like the government's not listening to the scientists.
no.
It's like, I don't really want to get started with politics, but the government don't listen to the healthcare officials either. Why should they listen to the scientists?
Yeah.
They don't want to. They want to spend the money lining their own pockets. Than putting it to good use and researching things that need to be researched.
Yeah. But I just think that it's such a it's such a random place to have started
Hmm.
with our exploration.
But it was also the closest.
Yeah.
and probably this, you know, the safest. I mean, with Pluto with the rings, who knows what kind of, stuff that would cause for the interference. But, I don't know. I'm not into the planets as much as I used to be, but yeah,
Yeah.
they need to do it differently. But that'll never happen because the government's always worried about lining their own pockets and not paying attention to the scientists that are involved saying, hey, we should go explore planet X out there.
Yeah.
You know, no, they
Well,
don't listen to them.
I get into like when the comet was coming through. You know, I like I like contemplating what that could mean, stuff like that. I just think it's interesting because I just thought if they one of the reasons that we might not have gone back is because we found stuff that we didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, that could be
Just
too.
no, we're good here.
They keep a lot of secrets too. The government, and they keep a lot of secrets from us. I mean, some of it's just coming out about other things.
Yeah.
And it's, oh, you're not ready for all of this that we know. Well, I beg to differ. Maybe we are.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think we are.
but that's who they are. They're like trying to decide what we need to know and what we don't need to know. And it's like the government. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. The governments are always going to keep things from you.
Yeah. Even though we're
Because
the people paying for the research.
they think you're gonna not, overreact or panic or whatever their excuse is, but it's an excuse. They're gonna keep it from you. And that's why you got all this information about UFOs coming out now, and you got, but it's like, oh, these FBI files, oh man, but they get released and they're still redacted.
I know that drives me nuts because I'm nosy
You
and I
know,
want to know. I hate
I see that
redaction.
stuff all the time, and it's like, they not like when like a big crime. You watch all these documentaries on a crime, right? You watch like Bonnie and Clyde, for example. They were like one of the most famous, bank robbers in history, right?
Yeah.
And there was all this stuff released, and then it's like there was plenty that was kept secret. But now that it's like 2000s, and oh, we can release that, we can let that go because it's not so much of an embarrassment anymore, you
Yeah.
know. But the reason that Bonnie and Clyde took so long for them to be caught, because they were always driving a faster car than the cops, and I saw that happen. He's like, there was an ex FBI agent was that you know was with Josh Gates, and he's like, look at this. This is what the police drove, and this is what Bonnie and Clyde drove, and they had a race out on dirt roads, straight as they could find. Right? He left that police car in the dust without even trying,
Yeah.
and it's like, see, but that didn't come out in the earlier reports. You know, they keep that stuff because it was an embarrassment to
Yeah.
the FBI. Oh, you got hurt. You know, I hate that. It hurts their pride. So what?
Yeah.
But you got to let the facts out there, for people to get the
Well, if you
real
don't,
story.
well, I mean, we're seeing now what not putting all the facts out there coming back to bite people.
Mhm.
And, that's a whole nother conspiracy. But, you can't catch the bad guys if you can't catch the bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta be able to stand a fighting chance to be able to catch
Right,
them. So,
right.
and
But
yeah, we still have that though with our, with our protections and things that prevent bad guys from being locked up. There are things that people will twist to make it. People will violate rights in order to put the right people away.
yep,
But
I've seen that. I've seen that happen a lot.
I've seen that too, and it's just so interesting to me. But I was a paralegal. Yeah, that's my education, so I like that.
Well, I took
But
police science for a while.
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
I love that.
I took police science for 2 years. I got an associate degree, but I was able never to become a cop because of the leukemia and car accident I got into kind of hurt. But I did the next best thing. I was a security guard for one of the largest and oldest security companies in the entire world.
Wow.
I was a Pinkerton.
Were you really?
Yep.
Wow, that would be fun.
Oh, where is it? Oh,
That is the
right here. See if we can dust it off. That's my plaque for Pinkerton.
too cool.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
So, and I still have my sergeant's badge from there because they kind of screwed me on the pay. Because, if you work so many hours at this account, so many hours at this account, because it wasn't all at the same account, they didn't have to pay overtime. So it was like one of those loopholes. So I got pissed and I got upset and I quit and I took my sergeant's badge with me. So, but I went through a lot with them. I worked for them for about 2 years, and you know, it was fun. I worked in some interesting places. Railvac. I worked at Railvac. This is a good one. This fits right in with the paranormal. I worked at Railvac. Now, Railvac, the plant, it was a packaging plant. I had been, it had been there since the 1800s. Okay.
Oh, really?
All right. And it had a thing, sign set outside. It said the date, 18 something. Anyway, that it was Railback started or whatever. So anyway, I was working there as security, and I trained this new person, and I got a call. I lived right across the street from Railback. Okay, at the same time I was a supervisor. I lived right across the street. I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the new person is like crying on the phone, scared as hell, all the
Oh
way in the
no.
back of the building. It was haunted. She saw a guy. She said she saw an apparition dressed in Civil War gear, like Civil War type outfit.
Like,
So I'm going, what do you want me to do? She's like, I need help. I need you to come find me. And so I went in and I got got up, went in, I had to walk across the street, had a key, got myself in, and I walked all the way back. And I didn't realize it because she woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was wearing a camo t shirt,
right.
like a camouflage t shirt, right? I get back there and she freaked out and she started crying. And she's like, take me to the front door. And she just got in her car and left and quit.
Oh my
But
gosh.
the thing about Railback, and I told her this too, because you gotta understand that Railback was wide open, except the one main building was all locked up. The rest of them were wide open. So you had all kinds of wildlife and critters through there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one nights that I was working there, I had a squirrel jump from the rafters onto my back.
Oh,
Scared the
oh,
living hell right out of me.
no doubt.
But it was, I told these people that this is possible. There's a lot of critters. There was an alleyway you had to go down, because the security you have, a key, and you gotta every hour you gotta do the round, right? So all these keys. One of these keys were in an alleyway. You had about 300-400 bats in that alleyway. Yeah. If you didn't have a flashlight, they'd all come, but shine a flashlight down there, they stayed up on the walls. But
Oh,
they were harmless to begin with, but it's like, they were just fruit bats,
yeah.
harmless fruit bats, and it's like, oh, and that place was haunted though. It was very creepy at night. But
I am sure. You know what? I think that is so many places without us even knowing it that are just way haunted. But we are going to have to go here just
yeah,
in a few minutes. We've got about 3 minutes left.
well,
But I'm always amazed by what's haunted. And then I'm
mhm,
always shocked by what's not too.
yeah,
So things that look like they should be don't have any reports.
yeah,
So doesn't
yeah.
mean they're not. Just
It's
nobody's
just
talking about
nobody's
it.
had an open mind enough to actually see anything happen.
Yeah.
you know. But Railback, I could understand that place being haunted because it's like any other plant type things. There's injuries and, you know, stuff like that. But as far as I knew, there was nothing about that it's haunted. You know, I worked there for Railback themselves for about a year. And then I worked there as security, head of security, for about 2 years. And I never had anything but critters startle the hell out of me, because you don't
Right.
expect them. Nothing ever turned on that wasn't supposed to turn on. Doors didn't open. It was just little critters up in, squirrels or possums or raccoons just rustling around where they didn't need to be, making noises. But as far as being haunted, I don't think so. They had such a safety record from OSHA and that if you would have looked back into that plant's history, nobody would have died there that I would have known of. Nothing would
Yeah.
have caused. It wasn't Native American land that they built on, or there wasn't nothing supernatural about that piece of property. you know. But if you look in
Well,
some of the other places, you know, some of the other places I've investigated or worked at, yeah, there's a good possibility. Building on cemeteries, like poltergeist.
yeah.
Oh, we moved the cemetery and we built here. Yeah.
They flooded the cemeteries here when they built the river system, the lock system here. And man, there's some stuff. You have to come back on with me sometime to talk about some
Oh,
of that stuff.
yeah, anytime.
But 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 we have got to go or we're not going to be able to rebroadcast any of this. And I have had so much fun with you. Thank you for coming with me.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been a great conversation. And for everybody who has listened, will be listening, thank you so much for being here. And we will see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel. And I'll see you Sunday night for Fate. Good night.